Okay. Hello. I I think I read the other day, I read the indictment myself and was kind of reading it quickly. But today I thought I would go over just a few videos and give my lovely comments on them. So the first one I'm going to start with is um, a clip from NBC News from the announcement of the charges, I'm sorry, against Puffy, whatever you want to call him. So we'll start with this one.
The business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs. And that Combs hit.
I'm only going to pause here to point out the fact that earlier I did a video with, I almost called him Pity. Well, he is kind of a pity. But when I went over Sean's attorney's interview with CNN, where he continued to claim that there's only one victim, there's only one in the indictment, blah, blah, blah. And yet right here, we hear him saying victims, as in plural victims.
Kicked, threw objects at and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance. Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to his abuse, kidnapping, and arson. The indictment alleges that on more than one occasion, Combs carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses. Now, Combs did not do this all on his own. As I mentioned, Combs has been charged with RICO conspiracy. He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff. The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. When the hotel rooms got damaged, they helped clean it up. They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to Combs to pay for the commercial sex workers. The indictment also alleges that they helped Combs cover up his crimes. During the March 2016 incident at the LA hotel that I mentioned earlier, a member of the hotel security staff intervened, and Combs attempted to bribe the staff member with a stack of cash to make sure that what happened was kept quiet. And as the indictment alleges, in late 2023, after public allegations were made about Combs's crimes, he and others pressured witnesses and victims to stay silent, including by making phone calls to witnesses and victims and giving them a false narrative of what they had experienced.
So basically gaslighting them to believe that they're wrong in what they think. It's no, you weren't kicked and dragged. You crawled over there because I can't even come up with an excuse for sick people. I can't get into their brain to come up with what they're thinking and be able to say. I just can't come up with any excuse. My brain doesn't work that way, I guess.
And as alleged, Combs used others to help conceal his abuse by monitoring and preventing victims from leaving a location in order to hide their injuries, or by locating and contacting a victim who had attempted to flee. As part of this investigation, in March of this year, special agents from HSI executed search warrants at Combs's residences in Miami and Los Angeles. They also executed a warrant for Combs's electronic devices. During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine. They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contain images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims. And they seized cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether. Here are some of the items that we recovered during the searches. As you can see here, this is a drum magazine, large capacity, and it contains, I believe, 59 rounds. I mentioned as well, we recovered 3 AR-15s. This is a close-up shot of one of the AR-15s, and you can see.
Yes, my daughter just came over and the dogs are getting really loud. I'm sorry, I'm gonna play this while I put the dogs outside.
See right here, the serial number has been thoroughly defaced. Another picture of more ammunition and parts of 2 AR-15s right there. Now, I want to be clear about 2 things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our commitment on that. A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 1-877-4HSI-TIP. I want to express my deep appreciation for the victims and witnesses who have used their voices and helped bring this criminal conduct to light. We would not be here without them. I also want to thank the dedicated case agents on the HSI Trafficking in Person Squad in New York. They have been with us since day one and have worked tirelessly on this investigation. They will continue to be invaluable partners to us. I also want to thank the incredible agents and analysts from SDNY who have also provided tremendous assistance on this case. I'm deeply grateful for their continued work. And finally, I want to thank the outstanding career prosecutors from SDNY who are handling this case. Meredith Foster, Emily Johnson, Chrissy Slavic, Madison Smizer, and Mitzi Steiner, and their supervisors, Jamie Backleeper and Jacqueline Kelly. They are members of the Civil Rights Unit in our criminal division. We created the Civil Rights Unit when I became U.S. Attorney. I'm deeply proud of their work on this and so many other cases. I'll now take some questions.
Now we get
Eric Katursky, ABC.
Thanks, Nick. Damian, thanks. The indictment describes aggressive, open violent, hedonistic abuse that you say was recurrent and widely known. Why did it take law enforcement so long to intervene? How many women were victimized by Sean Combs and how many others were involved?
Look, our investigation is ongoing. We are committed to bringing justice to everyone who's been victimized by the defendant. I can't tell you why it took so long. I think the better focus is on the fact that we are here today. And we are committed to making sure that justice is done. Next question.
Thank you. Julia Ainsley, NBC.
I almost want to answer that for him in a less diplomatic way. Oh, no, I can't say less diplomatic, but I would think that they were holding off on pressing the charges until they made sure, because once they go to court, you don't want a mistrial. You don't want the person to be acquitted. You want to make sure that you have every piece of information that you can possibly have to give to the jury to make a decision.
Thank you for doing this. You said we are not done and that Combs did not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
Janet Fisher.
Here, let me translate that. Yes, I am pretty sure that we will be charging other people and other people are going to go down.
Newsday.
What's the difference between the sex trafficking and promoting travel for the purpose of prostitution?
Well, there are different crimes with different elements. I don't think we should get into the nitty-gritty of the legal discussion right now, but the sex trafficking, we believe, they're all serious offenses, but the sex trafficking conduct carries some significant penalties, and we are gratified that we were able to bring that charge.
One more coercive than the other?
I'm not going to be able to get into that, but you can look it up, and yes, sex trafficking, especially when it involves coercion or force, is a very serious crime, and it carries significant penalties.
Good afternoon, Darla Miles, ABC 7 New York. Thank you for this press conference and for the details. 2 questions. In context of this indictment and the information that was presented to the grand jury, are you able to clarify the number of victims? It's mentioned plural in the indictment, but can you specify the number of victims just for this particular indictment? And secondly, can you provide details about the alleged arson?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide either. The number of victims, you are correct. We are intentional in saying multiple.
Again, going back to Diddy's attorney, when he sits there and wanted to point out there's only one victim, we are literally hearing that that is not true. There are multiple victims. He's using them, they, their, victims, persons, deliberately, because there's more than one victim.
The details of the arson incident are limited to what we have in the indictment and also the detention letter that we filed, which contains more details than the indictment does at various points, but we don't have anything more beyond that. Next question.
Lynn Tran, CNN.
Are any of his accomplices or associates under investigation? And additionally, could he face any more charges?
So the investigation is ongoing. That means both as to him and to anyone else who we believe committed the crime with him. Next question.
Juliet Papa.
Meaning I'm not going to name the people because then that could give them a way to flee. But yes, there are other people involved, like the staff and the people who cleaned up the messes and the people who brought the money and the oil and the lubricant and the numerous other, the cover-ups and everything else. Yes, there are going to be many, many more charges.
Hi, good morning from 1010 Wins. Any indication that some of the women or victims here were imprisoned in his residences, and did he have locations where he kept them, and were not allowed to leave? And also, he's indicted here, although there were searches and raids in LA, Miami. Why in New York?
Well, I'm biased. I'm the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York. I think that we have an outstanding track record of bringing some of the most impactful, sprawling, complex, difficult sex trafficking, human trafficking, labor trafficking, you name it. The Southern District of New York can do it, and so we're very proud of that. And so the scope and complexity of this investigation isn't something that we ran from, it's something that we embrace, and we will continue to do that.
And I'm going to have to say I'm biased because I'm from Cali, but I'll translate what he said. And basically, he's letting everybody know that the other places just weren't up to the challenge. And that's just how I'm taking what he said.
As to your question about whether he imprisoned anyone, all I can say is that, I mentioned this March 2016 incident where something was caught on video where a victim was attempting to flee, and there was violence that was associated with it. That was at a hotel.
Matthew Lee, Inner City Press.
I'm curious because I know the videos that came out with Courtney Clinny, a case of the OnlyFans model or whatever she was for OnlyFans, where she basically stabbed her boyfriend who died because of it. I know that people are questioning the luxury apartment complex or condo or whatever building because they had a liability to keep people safe in the building. Now, that incident with Diddy and Ventura, or with Cassie, that happened in a hotel, which means that there could be a lawsuit against the hotel for not maintaining a safe environment, right? I believe so. I don't know if this many years it can, but there'd be a case there.
Thanks a lot. Does your office intend to seek remand, or are you reaching a bail package? And if you're willing, how would you contrast this with the R. Kelly case in EDNY in terms of the elements? Thanks.
So we will be seeking detention. We have filed a letter laying out our reasoning for seeking pretrial detention. I'm not going to be able to expand beyond what's in the letter, but it contains all of the reasoning, and it contains the law as well. There is a presumption of detention in a case like this, and we think that's warranted.
John Elise, New York Daily News.
Thank you. I was hoping to get some more detail about the searches of his residence, the guns, the cases of lubricant, and the videos. Where were they found amongst his residence? Were they all scattered around the houses in one place? I kind of wanted to just get a better picture of how that stuff was found.
Well, look, I think that some of the details that you're seeking are in the detention letter. So, for instance, some of the AR-15s, 2 of the 3 defaced AR-15s were found in his bedroom closet in Miami, broken down into parts along with magazines with ammunition loaded in them. So some of that detail is in the detention letter. Beyond that, I'm not going to be able to get into where other items were stored.
Ben Kochman, Post.
Hey, thanks for doing this. Your office was the office that had been prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein before he died in custody. I have not read your detention memo yet. It's the first thing I'm going to do after this ends. But does the memo address, or is your office concerned with Combs's safety in custody, given what happened with Epstein?
So we are concerned with anyone's safety whenever they are detained prior to trial. It's part of our obligations to keep people safe as well. It's part of the criminal justice system. So, but I do not draw any sort of connection between Jeffrey Epstein's suicide and what may or may not happen to any other defendant while they are detained pre-trial. And of course, the decision whether to detain the defendant will be up to a judge. Our position is that pretrial detention is warranted under the law and based on the facts of this case. And I'll leave it at that.
Are some of the prosecutors on this?
It's the jail's job, or the detention center, it's their job to keep these inmates or defendants, safe, to get them to trial. The problem with Epstein was that his victims didn't even get their day in court because of what Epstein did in the facility. So that's the biggest, I think, giving the victims their day in court should be the number one. Nobody really cares about the personal safety of a violent womanizer.
Case, some of the same prosecutors that had been handling that or that worked on the Maxwell case?
So I'm not going to get into the staffing. I will say that this team, this group of AUSAs, this incredible group has been working on this case around the clock, and they've had their hands full. Next question.
Gus Rosendale, NBC News.
Good morning, sir. Combs' attorney said that his client has been cooperative with investigators. He said that this morning. I was wondering if you would have a reaction to that.
Let me just say this. I think that generally with increasing frequency, the word cooperative or cooperating has taken on tremendous elasticity, and it no longer really bears any relation to what the word means when we use it in a very specific context. So responding to lawful process and the like does not qualify as cooperation when we use that term here.
Mike Sisak, AP.
Translation, you coming to New York isn't you cooperating. You coming to New York was because you didn't want us to bring you.
Thanks. To that end, was there any discussion of Mr. Combs surrendering? I understand he was taken into custody at a hotel in Manhattan last night, and maybe that wasn't the plan. Can you elaborate on how that came about and why that was?
I'm not going to be able to get into any sort of operational details as to how he was taken into custody and when. He is in custody right now. He will be appearing in court later today.
Was there any discussion of him surrendering, given they claim he's cooperating?
I'm not going to be able to get into law enforcement tactics or operations. Well, I can't get into the charging decision. It is very meaningful to us that weapons were possessed, as we allege in the indictment. Part of the reason why this conduct was so pervasive and harmful was because victims and others didn't necessarily feel comfortable denying him his wishes, as we allege, because of the presence of firearms. I should leave it there.
Thanks. Last question, Jacob Shamison.
Jacob Shamsian, Business Insider. Thank you. Given that he's the sole defendant in this case and that you allege he's part of a conspiracy that involves members of his companies, do you anticipate a superseding indictment that will bring allegations against other members of his companies or other co-conspirators as well?
I can't take anything off the table. Anything is possible. Our investigation is very active and ongoing. And I think a lot of you who cover this office know that when we say such things, that developments are certainly foreseeable, but I cannot predict them sitting here today. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And again, I know that this press conference came out a couple of days ago. I didn't see it when I read off the indictment, but I wanted to hear it in his words. And I could think of 1,000 more questions I would have asked had I been the media in there asking the questions. But I understand he wasn't going to give us all the answers that we want anyways, because gotta wait for the court. The other thing I wanted to share today, because I only found this today, and it's not new, but I only found it today. And it seems that Diddy's son, Christian Combs, is following in his dad's behaviors towards women. So the apple doesn't really fall far from the tree. In 2022, he was also accused of assault, forcing himself on a female who thought she might have been drugged. And I don't know if maybe daddy is teaching a master class on how to use and abuse women, but Diddy is named in the lawsuit. And it goes back to what I was saying about the hotel and about Courtney Clinton and the residence where she lived and the who's going to be charged and things. And in that case, with the one I'm going to show a little clip of, Diddy is named in the lawsuit. It's not for the assault, though. It's because he chartered the yacht that this happened on. But I was just going to share a quick clip of that. Also from CNN. I love CNN.
A lawsuit that accuses Christian Combs, Sean Diddy Combs' son, of sexual assault. The music mogul is not accused of sexual assault in the lawsuit, but is included over allegations of liability and aiding and abetting. The lawsuit cites audio from a makeshift recording studio on the yacht where the alleged assault happened. This is the latest in a series of lawsuits filed against the rap mogul and businessman. Both men, father and son, deny the allegations against them. CNN national correspondent Camila Bernal joining me live with details on this. Camila, what more are you learning?
Hey, Fred. So in this audio that CNN has listened to, you can specifically hear the accuser who alleges that she was being forced to take this tequila shot that she believed was laced with drugs. And in the audio, you can hear her asking Christian Combs if she was being drugged. And he answers, take the shot. Now, just to put things into perspective, the accuser was a crew member on the yacht. She was a bartender. And she says that shortly after this incident with the shot, she says she was cornered in a room. She says things became aggressive and physical, and then says that Christian Combs forced himself on her, and then says that it wasn't until another employee on the yacht came into this room that the abuse that she is alleging in this 31-page lawsuit stopped. And she says it only stopped because that person came into the room. Now, I want to read part of what the accuser's attorney is saying right now. What he's saying is, defendant Sean Combs turned what was sold as a wholesome family excursion into a hedonistic environment. It resulted in an unexpected increase in workload for her and for her colleagues, as well as unwanted exposure to unlawful drug use, sex work, and general chaos. Now, why are they naming Diddy in all of this? And it is partially because he was leasing that yacht. Now, he is not accused of sexual assault, but he is accused in this lawsuit of liability and aiding and abetting because he was the one renting the yacht. Now, his attorney, or actually the attorney for both men, also speaking out and denying these allegations, saying this complaint is filled with manufactured lies and irrelevant facts. We will be filing a motion to dismiss this outrageous claim. Again, they have continued to say that this is something that they will fight, that they are innocent in all of this. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out in court, if it gets to court or if it gets settled at some point, which has been the case with a previous lawsuit. But again, we'll have to wait and see what happens as Diddy and his son continue to say they're innocent, and the victims here continue to say that they were sexually assaulted, Fred.
And so while music mogul Combs isn't accused of sexual assault in the lawsuit, he has been accused of a range of sexual misconduct in other separate lawsuits. How might that play into this?
Yeah, as I mentioned, one of the lawsuits was settled, but there are others that are currently pending, right? And so there's a lot of the details that we've learned, and attorneys say that there's
just a list of some of them. Now, the ones listed there are the ones all against Sean or Diddy or P, whatever you want to call him. But the question has to rise about, is this obviously actually like father, like son? How was he raising his sons? How was he raising his children at all? Because they're following in his footsteps, basically.
Audio and video of these alleged crimes, or at least some of the alleged crimes. You're seeing some of those cases there. The one with Cassie was the one that was settled, but there are other ones that we'll still have to wait and see how they play out. And of course, we all saw just last month as Diddy's homes in both Miami and Los Angeles were the target of a federal investigation. And we saw that all play out on video last month. But again, it's important to point out that Diddy continues to say that he is innocent. They said this was a gross overuse of military level force, and they say that he is innocent and will continue to fight to defend his name, Fred.
And anybody is going to say that they're innocent. I mean, the prisons and the jails are filled with nothing but self-proclaimed innocent people. So I find it interesting, though, that it wasn't just Sean Combs' passport that was surrendered. Some of his kids surrendered their passports. I think the moms to some of his kids surrendered their passports. I'm just curious if there's going to be anything, because for a minute there, I thought, no, there's not going to be anything sexual with the kids. But now I'm wondering, I definitely know the business empire and the racketeering and stuff. I don't want to say, but I feel like that's going to be involving some of the kids. But I will be putting together another video addressing new people that are speaking out, because as anything this big, like Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, so on, Weinstein, once one person comes out, everybody starts coming out and telling their stories. And there are so many people already speaking out on this, from men who witnessed it to females who were victimized by this man. I know that I believe Justin Bieber put out a statement. And so I'm going to be putting together a video on all of those and see where it goes from there. But I'll be following, because something new every hour, it seems like, comes out. So thank you for watching.